Hey, Adam. Don't you guys have enough to do? So, yeah, Em again. Welcome back to the spare room. Absolute mess. Not a lot to show you. Uh, Lots of pattern making happening. General shades of mess. I've been sweeping up. I've done some work on the power feed. I've done a few little jobs, a few things to show you, some mail, stuff like that. Hey, Mark. Hope you're doing okay. All I see is Facebook updates. Yeah, let us know if there's something I can help with. Machine NZ, good evening. Ali Tech, good evening. Ali Tech. Yeah, good evening. Sorry about this morning. I scheduled this wrong. I scheduled it at AM rather than PM, which was 12 hours ago. And no one well, Chirpy pointed it out, but I was a little bit lax in looking at his email. I didn't see it, to be honest, till this morning. And stuff happened right at 8 o'clock, so I didn't get on Chirpy's live stream, and I didn't get to check my social media because I was on his live stream until well after it happened. So I do apologise we got the time wrong. I thought I was all organised for once, but I wasn't. That's a myth. If you want organisation, maybe you should go check out ClickSpring or something. Hey Dan, how are you? Some interesting Foundry videos coming from you, Dan. Dan Harold, check out his channel. He's doing some pretty cool stuff. Interesting about the fire bricks, actually. So, apologies out of the way. I did mix up, and I know that there were people waiting, and I know that it's sort of unforgivable, but it was a crazy morning, and you don't want to know about it. But we had resignations at work, and I couldn't find my earbuds, and I couldn't listen to Chirpy's live stream, which I really wanted to. I haven't watched it yet, but it will happen. It looks like he slept in. It must have been too much for him. This pattern's finished pretty much. This is the front half. It's got a few fingerprints on it, and whether it'll get another coat of paint, I don't think so. What it's probably going to get is a rub back with some steel wool or some fine wet and dry and a coat of wax or something, just to bring the gloss up on the outside and make it nice and shiny. So that's that half, and that's this half, and they're doweled together. It's got two dowels there and one dowel there, and that fits together. So hopefully that's a pattern that's going to make a fairly nice steady, I hope. I intend to mill slots in here and put bronze fingers in here. I'm not sure I'm going to put rollers in it. For one, we lose too much diameter. And for two, there's not a lot to be gained on small diameters, really, as far as setup times and rigidity and so forth. They sort of compensate each other out, I think. So I'm just going to put a 1/4 inch bolt with a little finger through that's adjustable, and you can get it pretty close by loosening them off and giving them a tap until you get it right. And they'll take that a lot better than bearings and bushes will. So that's what I'm going to do probably. Anyway, this is still a little bit sticky. I'm getting fingerprints off this, so I'm going to put this up. This paint I picked, you see the fingerprints there? This paint I picked's taken forever to dry because it's been raining all weekend. How did I learn about pattern making? I made stuff and then I went and molded it. It's probably that simple. Make something and then go and sand mold it, or go and watch someone sand mold your pattern and find out where they curse and what takes the time and what could be improved, and come home and make the pattern again. That experience has got me wondering about this one. This is a 3D print, right? It's not shabby, but there's a lot of filler in it. You can see. The problem with 3D prints is that they lift and they shrink and they expand and stuff. Hey, Craig. And you end up with something that's not flat on the bottom, which it needs to be for a pattern, because we're sitting this on the board and we don't want sand under it because we'll end up with a mess. And when we pound the sand on the outside and then turn him up and pound the other side, we probably want to put a parting line or clean the dirt out around here. So you've got a clean parting line down here rather than right on the corner. And then we've got to lift this out. And what you find with 3D prints, and oh, you're right, Craig. Thanks for coming along. Hey, Peter. Thanks for joining in. What you find with 3D prints more than anything is that you end up with all these vertical lines. I've sanded most of these out. You can still see horizontal lines this way because that's where the layers go down. And I put a fair bit of filler in this, and I've given it about 4 coats of paint, and I'll put some more filler in it, and I'm going to give it some more paint. It's not finished yet. But those lines catch the sand as you pull it out, and then the sand falls in. So foundrymen and molders, this is PLA. Don't like 3D prints because they're a real cow to get out of the mold. Usually they don't have enough draft on them, and usually they don't have enough radius on the corners. So if hey, machining basics, it's all right. It's a very basic shape, and there was nearly as much time in actual hours from when it started to when it was finished. By the time you put CAD time, print time, filler time, paint time, sanding time, filler time, paint time, as it would have been to make this out of wood, and that would have been the easy way. So the other issue, of course, with 3D printing is you're limited with size, and anything that's small enough to go on a 3D printer you might as well make out of solid anyway because the stock's available. So Dan's right. That's why I don't like 3D printed patterns. This was quick and it was easy, but it still needs a little bit more work. This is a pattern for Adam, who is part of his, long-time girlfriend slash CNC mill slash Never Never project. So we've got to get this done and get it down to him and print it, cast in aluminium. Cast in aluminium and down to him so that he can actually get a little bit more done on his machine. He found a box of bits and sent up to me, and they're of interest probably. This box, I haven't really unpacked it because I only just brought it home tonight. It's pretty heavy. Probably a Rolls-Royce part number of something, I don't know what. The clue to what's in this box is this. Now, quality machine tool, really. This is a drawbar out of probably a production lathe or mill or something like that. Probably a mill. I imagine it's 10mm, which is Derbyshire collet thread. I imagine that all these bits are probably off a BCA jig borer or some sort of English lathe. And there's quite a lot of 10mm Derbyshire step collets and step chucks, pot chucks, things like that. And closers. There's a closer there for the collet, which has got a thread for the outside. I would love to be able to hook these up to the launch and make them work. Whether I can make some sort of a two-piece collet to go in that holds the Derbyshire collet, I'm not sure yet. We're still thinking about that. They might be fun though. There's quite a lot of them. What's also interesting is this set of WWs, in that they're pretty unique and they're fairly rare and they're very hard to get. For one reason. It could be a Poltro. It could be a Poltro. That's very true. These are WWs or Webster Whipcomb 8mm collets. I've just got rid of a Lorch lathe that takes these collets, but no real hassle because I'm never ever going to use a Lorch collet or use the Lorch lathe. But what I'd like to do, because these are Imperial, and Imperial WW collets are like rocking horse dung, and brass and silver steel stock still comes in Imperial sizes, I'm going to make a basically a mill block or a divider block to take these collets, just a little one with a nut on the back for the milling machine and for the lathe and the shaper, etc, etc, etc. So that's pretty much a score. I'm pretty happy to have a set of Imperial WWs. That's awesome. I think there's a couple missing, but not many. That one looks like it's about 16th. And I haven't really looked to see what the biggest one is. That one there looks like it's probably 532, 3/16. Another one. Oh, that one's Derbyshire. So, pretty excited to get that box. I do have a project for some of them. The other parts, I'm really not sure about yet. We'll put them in a box somewhere. And we probably won't use the amazing drawbars, any of them. But 3 or 4 there. This is a collet closer off something. I've got no idea what. It's an interesting looking piece. So thanks, Adam. A huge help, those, and we do have a project for some of these bits. I'm pretty excited about that. Oh, that'd be awesome, Alitic. I'd love to look. A collet block, yeah. Just a block with a collet in it, so that with 4 sides or 6 sides or whatever, 8 sides, so that you can easily index round stock to put hexes and four sides on. It's probably a pretty useful thing in that size anyway for my machinery. Been working on this. The ER32 is good, but ER32 is also way too big for any of my machines. And for some of the work that I do, it's nice to be able to index a 1/8 or 332 or 532 screw or bolt to put a hex head on, and it's a pretty useful thing to be able to do. And the collet block only needs to be sort of 1/2 inch square to do that. This is coming together. Slowly, it's kind of a work in progress. We've got a knob on here and the motor in the box. Stepper motors on there and fits in the box. We've got way too much wire. You can message me later, Adam, about making that a little bit shorter. We've got a pot here and we've got the wrong switch, but I think we're going to go with a forward stop reverse switch for that if we possibly can. Hey John, the elliptical man's turned up. Whether I make a casting, because this has got some draft angle on here, whether I make a casting to sit on top of here to go on the end of the, or bolt up on the end of the mill table, and a tooth pulley on here and a tooth pulley on the hand wheel. Whether I put a casting on here or whether I make it out of a block of aluminium I've got there is probably the easy way. And put a piece of plate up the front, I'm not sure yet, but that's starting to look pretty good. I'm really pleased with how that's going to fit together. And it's going to make a fairly nice, neat little power drive unit for my mill. So hopefully it's got enough power to run it, but it's geared down probably 4 to 1, something like that. So it should be heaps good enough. Doesn't take a lot of power to run a 3-inch cutter that's sharp. Someone asked about this little square. I showed some pictures of some of my pattern making tools, and someone asked about this. This is Starrett 453 die maker square. Actually, it's got a screw to lock the blade, and it's got another screw to adjust the angle, which is really nice for pattern making and setting up dies, things like that. Comes back to square. It's a bit wood dusty at the moment, and then you can crank it over to measure draft in a pattern. Comes with 2 blades, a little skinny one, which is helpful for or useful for some things, and a wider one. But really nice tool and pretty helpful for putting draft on patterns. Something like this pattern I'm messing around working with. It's kind of handy to be able to check that you've got the same amount of draft all the way around, which we probably haven't. But that's what that is. It's a die sinker square. It's a Starrett. I think it was JB who asked about that actually, and I don't think he's here. Anyway, we're not showing you that. Love it. What else has sort of happened? Not a whole lot. Not very much at all. I've had the weekend in bed with the gastro. there's one more thing. I'm going to order a flywheel for this new engine project from Martin Models in martinmodel.com. The link's down the bottom. In America. And he sent me an email about postage. It's going to cost me the same amount to get 20 pounds of castings out here from America as it will to get the 3-pound flywheel I want. Which, all in all, isn't really a huge amount, and it's still a reasonably cheap flywheel for what you get. It's a fairly big flywheel, and it's going with the postage. However, if anyone wants anything from Martin Model, shoot me an email. Have a look on their website. If you're in Australia and you'd like a flywheel for a project, they have a lot of flywheels and they have a lot of other things as well. Shoot me an email. Send me some funds and we'll put it all in together and I'll post it out to you, and I'd be happy to do that for you. Get some value for our postage. So you still there? It might be you, Joan. Hey, JB. I don't know. I'm still getting feed, but I haven't had any interruptions yet. Anyway, I'm going to get a flywheel. I'm going to get it in probably the next 2 weeks. I'm going to order it. It's in stock. I've been offered a discount. We should cover postage from me to you. So if you want a flywheel at stock at Martin Models price, without any postage, drop me a line, have a bit of a look. They've got a huge range. Let me know how much and we'll work out a system of getting it here and getting it to you, and I'll keep you up to date on it. So just thought I'd say, hey, look, I know you're all building engine projects and you've all got 1,000 projects you're waiting to start on and you're missing that flywheel casting. If you see something that you want, let me know. We'll get it organised and you'll get it post-free to Australia. So there's a pretty good offer, I reckon. And it doesn't really help me out, but it helps Martin Model out, and it'll help you out. And it makes me feel like I'm not quite wasting my $70 postage. So there you go. Run now. Soldering silver steel to brass. Get something clean. Get everything hot. The main secret is to get a big bushy flame and get everything hot enough for the solder to run. You want a decent flux, fairly new flux, not 100-year-old flux that's gone hard and you've mixed with tap water. John Creasy had some black flux that he bought from America, which was amazing, I think. I'd like some of that. But depending on what you want to do with it, select a higher melting point silver. a gold tip or yellow tip silver rather than brown tip or blue tip, because you're going to find it's going to flow a lot nicer and you're going to have a much nicer joint. If it doesn't work, clean all the bits up and do them again. But you're going to end up with pretty brittle parts silver soldering silver steel. Silver steel and silver solder tend to not be a particularly good match, I would imagine. A mechanical fastener might be better. And that's just my $2 worth. If you want the silver steel for anything that's actually got to do any work that you would use silver steel for, you might have problems with it afterwards. I don't know if there's a whole lot else happening really at all. I'm going to say again, get some fire bricks. That's an awesome idea. I made this little hearth. I guess you've all seen that. It's under the bench. If you can get 55% silver solder, get it and buy a quantity, but you're going to struggle with it. I can get 45 here reasonably easy from the air conditioning supplies. If you go to Actual Parts or one of the air conditioning supplies here in Australia, they might be in New Zealand too. They've got a good range of silver solder. But getting 55% is going to be difficult. This little hearth's just fire bricks. I found a piece of perf metal and put some wooden legs on it to give it basically so that I can pick it up. That's about the only reason. It's got a piece of angle in here, sort of so that everything's tight. They're all a bit broken up, but that's a pretty useful thing. And these are just cheap fire bricks. Like they really are cheap. But if you've got a silver solder something, you can sort of direct the heat pretty well with a couple of fire bricks and something like that. So that's a pretty good project. It's a good fun thing to make and pretty useful. And it keeps everything contained and you're less likely to catch fire to the walls and stuff, which is really important. If I had more space, this would be about 4 times as big. And it'd be on its own stand and probably have a rack underneath for silver solder and flux and stuff as well, and gas torch fittings, but that just never ever happened. Yeah, LPG. Don't be shy when you're silver soldering with the size of the tip. Most of these LPG kits come with little tips. Oops. Oops. Woo. Crap. Most of these LPG kits, and this is a pretty good little kit. This is a Trade Flame or Primus or Primus, whatever it is. I don't know what's in here. This is about the standard tip. That bullfinch is really, really good. That's heaps hot enough. Rob at in South Australia, his YouTube channel, someone could probably put a link up to it. He has a bullfinch torch and he swears by it. He's done a lot of videos about silver soldering with it, so he's worth a look. But a tip more like this is better for silver soldering, probably a big bushy flame. Depending on what you're doing. But this gets things hot. Someone asked about tool grinding. Audi special 6-inch tool grind. Oh crap. I think this swivel's time to retire. A white wheel would be pretty useful. I sharpen a bit of high-speed steel and a few form tools, things like that. This is not bad. I think we're about ready to kill this. Crap. Ah, sorry. We got it. I think this probably needs a white wheel. What I'd love for it is, or for another one, if I got a bigger one, is one of those 3M soft abrasive Scotch-Brite wheels. They're amazing. I've seen them in action a couple of times. That's what I'd like. But this is not a bad little grinder. They were $29.95 at Aldi. It's nice and smooth. It seems to be plenty of power to it. The switch is what's going to go first, but at the moment it's not too shabby. At the moment that's all I've got, and sometime in the next 12 months I'll have a proper tool grinder at some point, but I've been promising myself that for 2 years, so we'll see. But at the moment that's what I've got. Craig, right on. So yeah. This stupid camera mount needs some work. It's another job I've been putting off. Hasn't happened yet, so one day. Anyway, not much else to report. It's cheered me up a whole lot. I've had a really crappy day. I need something. I've really not had a good day. We've had staff resignations and I've had all sorts of crap go on today, and then this morning didn't really start well at all. But it's cheered me up chatting to you guys. Thanks heaps for joining me. This weekend I hope to get to the foundry and get some of these castings made. I've seen pictures of iron castings for my ellipse chuck project. So they've been done and I've got to pick them up. So before very long at all, we're going to be starting that project as well, I hope. I'm pretty excited about that now. Hey, Stefan. There's SG. Gosh, you've migrated up to the same category as HH for Harold Hall and GHT for George Thomas and SG for Stefan Gottswider. You know, you made it. Anyway, that tool and cutter grinder, Stefan, is coming up really nice. Gosh, it was sort of all the big guns are coming in now. Adventures with a very small lathe. Evening. Thanks for the great pictures and the atmospheric shots from Great Dorset Steam Fair. Alistair, really enjoyed that. Good videos. Your tool and cutter grinder, Stefan, is looking really nice. I've been following that. If no one knows who who Stefan is, you ought to go and check out his channel. Also, Adventures with a Very Small Lathe, you should check that out. Does some great stuff. With the Proxon lathe is pretty interesting channel. Who else is here? JB from Oz, you should check him out too. He's only a tool hoarder. He doesn't actually make stuff, but go and check him out. He's got a parcel coming tomorrow, so he'll have a video up in the next 24 hours. He was wearing this old Tony t-shirt though, so we know where his loyalties are. Mark Pressing. Yeah, he has a lot of stuff in there. You'll be able to put some outside because he bought all those C-clamps and now he can build a fence. That'll be nice. Yeah, you got to wonder at some people. Hey, Lewis. JB's quiet in the background there. He's not happy with the fence project and must be. Portugal's a good spot, I imagine. I have Facebook friends from Portugal. I think they're expats, but probably English and Whinge and Poms, but not entirely. I saw the mic stand. That looks really good. I did see that video, JB. I take it all back. Probably wants a windshield on it for when you're outside welding all those C-clamps together. Oh, that's awesome. Sydney's not much of a spot, but welcome to Australia when you get here. Oh, there's some nice people live in Sydney. The cat must be, looks a bit hungry. That was he must be a stray, because the poor little kitten looked a little bit hungry and would have eaten anything. I think that's a bit mean. I'm just saying that anyone else would feed the kitten some good food and end up with, yeah, less productive kitten. Hey, Dave. Yeah, anyway. Hey, that's this old Tony's video. I'm sure you've all seen it, and like everyone's seen it, and it was up last week. There's a new ClickSpring video on Patreon 2 this week, so I'm guessing that'll be up next week too. But this is starting to come together. There's not many bits left. I've got a belt coming, so then we can make a pulley. It needs a cylinder and it needs a piston. It needs some pipe work. And it needs a canopy. And it's about done. This is the little burner. Goes in the back. Not much more to do to that. And hopefully, if I'm not working too many 8-day weeks and things like that, which it looks like I might be, I'll get this finished in the next month probably. I do finish some things. But yeah, I'll accept that because I get called ER. I like that. So that's pretty cool. I've just started releasing this on YouTube, so you will see it in dribs and drabs as it goes through. The chimney video, which this hole's actually straight up and down. It doesn't look straight up and down because the casting's not straight. But it doesn't really matter either. It's not a machine surface that anything's running in. And to file this up around here to match up would be a very easy job. So the chimney video's up. I think the next one we moved on with the front axle or the wheels or something. But anyway, that'll be up in the next few weeks. So keep an eye out for that. Happy to share it. I guess some of you have seen this. Gosh, right over here. Right in the back. This is another project. In an elderly, speaking of ever getting things finished, in an elderly workshop simple lathe project book that I was given, there are drawings for an ellipse chuck to go on a lathe. I made some patterns. And got these cast, and I made the rest of the patterns and got them cast in iron. They've just been done. So there's a lot of metal to come off most of these parts. It's pretty heavy actually. and might be a little bit too sturdy to do the job. But when we've got those castings, I pick them up next weekend. I'm excited about that. We can get on and we can get this finished too, which is a project I'm excited about and have been since I started it. JB, do you need another machine? Yeah, this is a Renzetti's fault project. He's sort of the one that goaded me into actually making the thing. I did some drawings to see how it actually worked, and that was really a concept thing because the sketch I had is muddy. It's just a little sketch in a book, and translating them to actual parts and actual thing that works is very difficult. So I did it in CAD just to find out which parts moved where and what actually happened. And he kind of said, well, why don't you make one? Or he sort of goaded me in, I think, something like that. So the project has the hashtag Renzetti's fault. I might put that on here, on the box at some point. It's very difficult, actually. My foundry, Alistair, has done the first iron castings, which happen to be mine, which are the rest of this project. And they look nice in the photos, and that's all I've seen. I'm going to pick them up next weekend. But I really struggle to find anyone to make reasonable iron castings. It's one of those things. This will probably be in aluminium with a mating iron piece to go on top, because of time and cost. Gosh. Tommy gun machining, that's a bit crazy. But anyway, you're good with crazy projects, so you'll get that done. I would like this cast in iron, but I can't, because for one, I've either got to send it to America, or I've got to wait 3 months for my 4 months or 5 months or 6 months for my foundry to do another run of cast iron. I need this project to start, what did I say, about a month. We'll be starting on this one. And pattern making gets a bit boring, so people don't really want to see that back to back for months. So I want to do some machining in between, and I'd like this in aluminium to do it. There's some good this is one of these crazy projects that come from John, come from a sketch in a book. This is my next Patreon project. When this little traction engine's finished, this will be the next one. This is a petrol engine, and this is the bed plate for it. I've been messing around making this pattern. It's got a bit of draft, or plenty of draft, I hope, on it. I would like at least to have it somewhere near ready to mould next weekend so that I can at least do a trial. And if I do get them done in cast iron, I know that they're going to work. So at least mould them up and open the mould and see how they come out and where the problems are and things like that. So I'm going all out on getting this finished this week. Yeah, it's a Stewart petrol engine. Iron's a fairly difficult thing to cast. Yes, you can get metal in moulds and poured and stuff, but getting a metal that you can actually machine, I think, is a little bit more difficult. And getting metal that flows into corners is also a bit more difficult. Getting metal of a known quantity to do actual work with in engineering specs is kind of impossible at home, I believe, without a lot of practice and experience. That's the big issue. Having said that, anyone who wants to pay postage, give it 6 months. Maybe the boys and girls up at the Foundry Club will be a bit more keen to do a bit more cast iron. Empire of Dirt's right. It's filthy here. Sanding body filler for hours is what makes things filthy. As things are pretty gross and I need to have a clean up in the next few hours, but I've got to get this done and I've got to get the other patterns done so that I can get them cast this weekend, because if I don't get them cast this weekend and have a weekend away, the next weekend I'm going to be back working 6-7 days a week, so not going to happen. Anyone else who wants to have a go and get a foundry up and running in Australia to cast iron, I can keep you busy. Like, seriously, I can. There's projects to do. And lots of things that I'd really like. There's bits for the lathe, there's bits for the milling machine, big castings, little castings. There's a dozen projects I could do. So get in and get the foundry going. But it's not a cheap thing, and there's a fair bit of work and a fair bit of experience goes into being able to pour iron, I think. Lucky Jen does some really, really nice work, but he doesn't want to do work for anyone else either, and I sort of don't blame him. I have asked him on numerous occasions. I actually asked him about doing the castings for this project, and he just wasn't interested, so... we'll see how we go. Anyway, gosh, we're 55 minutes again. I don't know how that happened. Thanks, everyone. I'm going to sign off here. It's awesome to catch up with you all. Really appreciate you all stopping by, spending the time, having a chat. Anyone who's watching this back, don't forget, if you're in Australia and you want a casting from Martin Model, they do iron and bronze flywheels in particular. Drop me an email. Or send me a message on social media, something like that. Get me get some conversation going, and I can include it in, and it's not going to cost you any postage. So that's pretty fair. I'm pretty lucky to be able to do that, I think. So anyone who's interested, have a look at their website. If there's something you want, project you've got in mind, drop us an email, and we'll get an order together, and we'll get some stuff out of America. If I haven't heard anything from anyone by probably the end of next week, I'm just going to order my stuff. And big thanks, Lewis. Have a nice day, Stefan. See you, Dan. See you, JB, and we'll catch you all around. Be good to each other.